Welcome to the Retirement Wealth Podcast. We're glad you're joining us for another episode.
Absolutely, Emily. Today, we're diving into something that's becoming increasingly important for everyone planning their retirement.
Yeah, and that's how to adjust your retirement plan for inflation. It's a topic that can feel a bit daunting, but it's so crucial, right?
Exactly. Inflation can really impact your purchasing power over time, and many people don't realize how much it can affect their savings and spending.
Right. So we're going to break down some key strategies today, like how to factor in inflation when planning your expenses, and even how to adjust your investment strategy to keep up with rising costs.
And we'll also touch on some tools you can use to help estimate future expenses, and how to create a flexible plan that can adapt over time.
Sounds great. This is going to be super helpful for anyone who's either nearing retirement or already enjoying their golden years.
It really is, and, understanding these adjustments can provide a lot of peace of mind.
Exactly. So let's jump right in and start exploring how inflation affects retirement planning.
Great idea. Let's get into it. So, Emily, when we think about why adjusting retirement plans for inflation is crucial right now, we really can't ignore the economic landscape we're in. I mean, just look at the rising costs of everyday items. Groceries, gas, healthcare, it's all adding up.
Right, and it feels like every time I check the news, there's another report about inflation rates climbing. It's a real concern for folks who are nearing retirement or even those already enjoying their golden years.
Exactly, and that's where planning becomes so essential. For instance, I had a client, let's call him Frank. He's in his early 60s, planning to retire in a couple of years. He was initially thinking about living on his savings and Social Security alone, but when we crunched the numbers considering inflation, it painted a different picture.
Oh, wow, I can imagine. What did you find out?
Well, Frank had a comfortable nest egg, but with inflation projected to stay elevated, his purchasing power was at risk. We found that if he didn't factor in a reasonable inflation rate, he could end up with significantly less buying power in just a decade.
That's a wake-up call for sure. And I bet many people don't realize how quickly those costs can erode savings.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the basics like food and gas. Think about healthcare costs. They've been rising much faster than general inflation. A couple I worked with recently, let's call them Mary and John, are already feeling the pinch. They didn't anticipate their medical expenses could consume such a large portion of their budget.
That's so true. And with health issues often becoming more prevalent as we age, it's like a double whammy.
Right? And here's the kicker. Social Security benefits are tied to inflation too, but they often don't keep up with the actual cost of living increases retirees face. So relying solely on Social Security can be risky.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like retirees need to think of their plans as a living document that evolves with the economic climate.
Exactly. And that's why being proactive is so important. For Frank, we adjusted his retirement timeline and included some inflation-protected investments in his portfolio. It was a big relief for him to know he wouldn't have to compromise his lifestyle due to rising costs.
I love that approach. So it's not just about saving a big number, right? It's about how that number works over time.
Yes, and let's not forget market volatility. The stock market can be unpredictable, especially during turbulent times. If someone is planning to withdraw from their investments during a market downturn, their overall retirement plan can take a hit.
Oh, I can see how that would be stressful. It's like you need to be prepared for both inflation and market fluctuations at the same time.
Exactly. And that's why we talk about tax efficiency too. It's all interconnected. Retirees should consider how their withdrawals will be taxed, as taxes can take a significant bite out of their income, especially if they're not careful about where their money is coming from.
It's like a balancing act. You have to juggle all these different variables to keep things in check.
Absolutely. And here's a real-life example. I had a couple, let's call them Sarah and Tim. They thought they were set with their savings, but when we looked at their tax situation, we realized they were going to hit a higher tax bracket in retirement. We recommended some strategic withdrawals from their accounts, which helped them keep more of their money.
That's really smart. So with all these changes happening, how can retirees and pre-retirees navigate these waters?
Well, it's about being informed and adaptable. With healthcare costs rising and potential changes to Social Security benefits, it's crucial to revisit your plan regularly. Also, consider legacy planning. If you want to leave something behind for your loved ones, that needs to be factored into your overall strategy.
That's a great point. It's not just about surviving retirement. It's about thriving and ensuring your family is taken care of, too.
Exactly, and it can be emotionally taxing to think about these things, but that's where financial security becomes so important. Knowing you've taken steps to protect your future can bring peace of mind.
Yes, that emotional side is often overlooked, but feeling secure can really enhance the quality of life in retirement.
Well said. And that's why we're gearing up to share some core strategies next. It's time to equip our listeners with the tools to make these adjustments effectively.
I can't wait to dive into those strategies.
So, when we talk about adjusting your retirement plan for inflation, one of the first things that comes to mind is asset allocation, right?
Absolutely, David. It's really all about how you're dividing your investments among different asset classes.
Yeah, and a common rule of thumb is the 70-30th portfolio, where you might have 70% in stocks and 30% in bonds. But with inflation being a concern, you might want to reassess that mix.
Right, because stocks generally offer a better growth potential to outpace inflation. But then, bonds can provide some stability, especially as you get closer to retirement.
Exactly. So if you're in your 50s or early 60s, you might want to lean a bit more towards stocks. But on the flip side, as you approach retirement, shifting more into bonds can help protect your capital.
And what about tax-advantaged accounts, like 401ks or IRAs? How do those fit into the picture?
Great question. These accounts are crucial because they allow your investments to grow tax-free or tax-deferred, which can significantly impact your overall returns. For instance, if you have a Roth IRA, your withdrawals in retirement are tax-free, which is a huge plus, especially if taxes go up.
Yes, and if you're contributing to a traditional 401k, you're reducing your taxable income now, but you'll pay taxes on withdrawals later. So it's a balancing act, isn't it?
It really is. And let's not forget about Social Security optimization. That can be a significant part of your retirement income. Timing your benefits can make a huge difference, especially with inflation adjustments.
Oh, definitely. If you delay claiming Social Security, you can increase your monthly benefit. I mean, it can grow by about 8% each year you wait past your full retirement age.
Right, and those increases are tied to the cost of living adjustments, so it's a way to keep pace with inflation. If you can afford to delay, it's often worth it.
And what about withdrawal strategies? I've heard about the 4% rule. How does that fit in?
The 4% rule is a guideline suggesting that you can withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year, adjusted for inflation, without running out of money over a 30-year retirement.
But, it's not one size fits all, right? Depending on your lifestyle and expenses, you might need to tweak that percentage.
Exactly. Some people might find they need more, especially if healthcare costs rise or if they want to travel. That's where the bucket strategy comes in.
Ah, yes, the bucket strategy. You essentially divide your assets into buckets based on when you'll need the money.
Right, so you might have a short-term bucket for immediate needs, like the first 5 years of retirement invested in cash or short-term bonds. Then a medium-term bucket for the next 5 to 10 years, maybe in a balanced portfolio of stocks and bonds. Finally, a long-term bucket that's more aggressive, invested in equities for growth.
That makes a lot of sense. It gives you peace of mind knowing you have immediate resources while still growing your investments for the future.
And diversification within those buckets is key. You want to spread your investments across different sectors and asset classes to mitigate risk.
Definitely. And speaking of risk, let's not overlook real estate. It can be a good hedge against inflation too, can't it?
Yes. Real estate often appreciates over time and can generate rental income, which can keep up with inflation. Just be mindful of the management and maintenance that comes with property ownership.
Right, and not to mention the property taxes. Those can rise with inflation as well.
Exactly. So it's important to factor in those costs when considering real estate as part of your retirement strategy.
And what about annuities? I know they can provide a steady income stream, but how do they fit into the inflation discussion?
Annuities can be tricky. They can offer guaranteed income, which is great for budgeting, but you have to be cautious about inflation protection. Some annuities come with inflation riders, but they can be costly.
So it's about finding the right balance. right? You want the security of steady income, but also need to consider how that income will hold up against rising costs.
Exactly. It's like a puzzle. You want to ensure all the pieces fit together to create a complete picture.
And speaking of pieces, what about tax savings techniques? Are there strategies people can use to optimize their tax situation in retirement?
Absolutely. One common approach is tax loss harvesting, where you sell investments at a loss to offset gains. This could help reduce your tax bill.
And then there's the idea of converting traditional IRAs to Roth IRAs during low-income years to minimize taxes on withdrawals later.
Precisely. And remember, required minimum distributions, or RMDs, kick in at age 72. Planning for those is critical because they can impact your tax situation significantly.
So, if you can strategically withdraw before RMDs start, you might manage your tax bracket more effectively.
Right. And that's where a good financial advisor can help you navigate these waters.
It really can get complicated, but having a solid plan in place helps.
Absolutely, and being proactive about your strategy is the key to adapting to inflation.
But, even with a solid plan, there are common pitfalls people can fall into when adjusting for inflation.
That's a great transition. Let's dive into those pitfalls next. So, Emily, when we talk about common pitfalls in retirement planning, one of the big ones that always comes up is sequence of returns risk.
Oh yeah, that's a tricky one. Can you explain what that means for our listeners who might not be familiar?
Sure. So, sequence of returns risk is basically the risk of receiving lower or negative returns early in retirement, especially when you're withdrawing from your savings. It can really impact the longevity of your portfolio.
That makes sense. I imagine if someone has to sell investments at a loss early on, it could really set them back.
Exactly. I had a client, let's call him Jim. He retired in 2008, right before the market crash. That year, he had planned to withdraw a certain percentage for living expenses. But because the market took such a hit, he had to sell more shares than he originally anticipated, which meant he was starting off on the wrong foot.
Yikes, that sounds painful. What happened to Jim's plan after that?
Well, over the next few years, he found himself in a position where he had to adjust his lifestyle. Cut back on spending, which is tough when you've just retired and want to enjoy life.
Definitely. It's like a double whammy, losing money and having to change your plans.
Right, and then there's the issue of ignoring taxes in withdrawals. It's something many retirees overlook. They think, I'm just withdrawing my savings, but they don't account for how much taxes will eat into that.
That's true. Can you give an example of someone who faced that issue?
Sure, I had another client, let's call her Susan. She had a good chunk of money in her traditional IRA. When she started withdrawing, she didn't realize how much tax she would owe on that income. She ended up taking out more than she needed because she wanted to maintain her spending level, which pushed her into a higher tax bracket.
Wow, that's a big surprise. So she ended up losing more to taxes than she planned?
Exactly. She had to adjust her budget mid-year because of it. If only she had planned her withdrawals more strategically, she could have minimized her tax hit.
That's a great point. What about healthcare? Do you see retirees underestimating those costs?
Oh, absolutely. Healthcare can be one of the most significant expenses in retirement. I had a couple, we'll call them Mike and Lisa, who thought they had it all figured out. They budgeted for their monthly expenses, but didn't factor in potential healthcare costs.
Did they run into issues because of that?
Yes, they did. A few years into retirement, Lisa was diagnosed with a chronic condition that required ongoing treatment. Their budget quickly became strained, and they had to dip into their savings more than they had planned.
That's such a common scenario. It must be tough for people to wrap their minds around those unexpected expenses.
It really is. And then there's the longevity factor. Many people underestimate how long they'll live. If you plan for a 20-year retirement but end up living for 30 years, that can really stretch your resources.
Right. I guess that goes back to having a flexible plan, doesn't it?
Exactly. Having a flexible plan and regularly reviewing it can help. I had a client named Tom who was in great health and thought he'd be fine, but he didn't account for the fact that he might live into his 90s. Now he's in a position where he has to make some tough choices.
That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, and another common pitfall is poor asset allocation. Many retirees stick to a conservative approach. thinking it's the safest route, but that can actually limit growth potential.
So they might miss out on opportunities to grow their funds?
Exactly. I had a client, let's call her Karen, who kept most of her funds in cash or very conservative investments. When inflation hit, her purchasing power diminished significantly. She realized too late that she needed to take on a bit more risk to keep pace with inflation.
That's a tough lesson. What can people do to avoid these missteps?
Being proactive is key. Regularly reassessing your asset allocation, understanding your tax implications, and factoring in healthcare needs as you get older can make a huge difference.
And I assume that means having open conversations with a financial advisor, right?
Absolutely. A financial advisor can help you spot red flags early on. If you're not sure about your plan, or if things aren't lining up with your goals, that's a sign to reach out for help.
That's really sound advice. So if someone finds themselves in a situation like Jim or Susan, what steps can they take to recover?
Well, first, they need to take a deep breath and reassess their situation. Look at their budget, their current investments, and their withdrawal strategy. Sometimes, simply adjusting the withdrawal rate can help.
And that goes back to having a flexible plan, right? Being willing to adapt as circumstances change.
Exactly. And if there are significant changes in healthcare needs or other expenses, it's important to revisit the plan and make adjustments accordingly.
It sounds like regular check-ins are crucial.
Yes, they are. And remember, retirement isn't a one-size-fits-all journey. It's about tailoring your plan to accommodate your unique situation, your goals, your lifestyle, and your health.
Great insights, David. So to wrap up this discussion, it's clear that being proactive and adaptable is key to navigating retirement successfully.
Definitely. The earlier you can spot potential pitfalls, the better equipped you'll be to tackle them head on.
And that leads us perfectly into the next steps for our listeners.
You know, Emily, the first step for anyone looking to adjust their retirement plan for inflation is really to take stock of what they have.
Absolutely. It's like you can't really chart a new course unless you know where you're starting from, right?
Exactly. So I recommend that listeners sit down with their current financial statements. Things like 401ks, IRAs, and any other investment accounts they have.
Right. And it's also a good idea to get a sense of your current expenses. You could even break them down into categories, like necessities versus discretionary spending.
Yes, that's really key. And once you have a clear picture, you might want to use some online calculators to see how inflation could affect your future spending. Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab all have great retirement calculators.
Oh, for sure. Those tools can help you run different scenarios, right? Like, what if inflation rises higher than expected?
Exactly. And while you're at it, checking out SSA.gov can give you a better understanding of your Social Security benefits, which, can be a crucial part of your income in retirement.
And don't forget about tax implications. Using tax software, or even consulting with a tax professional, can really help you understand how to optimize your withdrawals.
Definitely. Tax planning is often overlooked, but it can have a significant impact on your overall retirement strategy.
So what about investment strategies? Are there specific habits that people can start incorporating into their routine?
Good question. I always suggest reviewing your portfolio at least quarterly. This way, you can see if your asset allocation still aligns with your risk tolerance and goals.
Right, and if you notice something off, like not keeping pace with inflation, you can adjust your investments accordingly.
Absolutely. And running retirement projections regularly can help you stay on track too. There are some intuitive financial planning apps out there that can make this process easier.
Yeah, and I think it's also helpful to educate yourself. There are some great books and podcasts out there that focus on retirement planning.
For sure. The Boglehead's Guide to Retirement Planning is a classic. It's packed with practical advice.
Oh, that's a fantastic one. And I really love Choosify as a podcast. They tackle a lot of financial independence topics that can really help with retirement planning.
Exactly. And, it's never too late to improve your plan. Even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Right, like setting up automatic contributions to your retirement accounts. That's a simple habit that can really pay off in the long run.
Yes, and maybe start a monthly review where you assess your spending and savings, just to keep everything in check.
That sounds manageable, just small steps, right?
Exactly, and don't forget about your health. Investing in your health now can save a lot of money down the road, especially with medical costs expected to rise.
Oh, that's a great point, David. Regular exercise, healthy eating, those are investments too, in a way.
Definitely. So with these tools and habits in your pocket, you're not just reacting to inflation, you're proactively adjusting your retirement plan.
Yeah, and it feels empowering to take control of your financial future.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now let's bring this all together. Well, Emily, it's been quite a discussion today. I think we've really highlighted some key strategies for adjusting retirement plans for inflation.
Absolutely, David. One of the big takeaways is just how crucial it is to regularly review your retirement plan. I mean, inflation can really sneak up on you, right?
Right, and staying informed about those inflation rates, that's essential. You want to ensure your investment returns are keeping pace, or even outpacing inflation.
And let's not forget about diversifying income sources. Having a mix of investments can help buffer against inflation's impact. It's all about creating a more resilient portfolio.
Exactly. And we also talked about the importance of considering your spending habits. Adjusting your budget based on inflation can be a game changer. It helps you stay on track with your retirement goals.
Yeah, and keeping an eye on healthcare costs. They can rise faster than general inflation. Planning for those increases is key to maintaining your quality of life.
For sure. So, as we wrap up, I just want to encourage everyone to take these insights and really think about how they can build and protect their retirement wealth. It's all about being proactive, right?
Definitely. And listeners, we'd love to hear from you. If you found something today that resonated, please like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have.
And if you know someone who's planning for retirement or who's already in it, share this episode with them. It might just be the nudge they need.
Next time, we'll dive into how to build an income ladder in retirement. It's going to be an exciting topic, so you won't want to miss it.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that conversation.
Well, thank you all for listening. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.